Joining me on the line, he is, well, the master of the paranormal. We're just going to put it like that because he has a lot of different things he does. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Schrader is on the line with me. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I better see that on your business card from now on, the master of the paranormal.
I would, but all of the masters that have come before me, I'm sure, would have me burned at the stake. But I appreciate the effort.
What is on your business card? I know that's a really weird, stupid question, but do you have anything like goofy on there, or kind of paranormally, or is it just Dave Schrader?
Host of Darkness Radio.
Okay.
That's what I've been known for the longest. 15 years. We'll be celebrating our 15th anniversary this January.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
as a long-running host of a paranormal radio program, that's kind of my main thing, and all the rest kind of comes off at doing the Holzer Files on Travel Channel, author, and live speaker. So it's kind of a nice little, but everybody knows me as the radio show host.
It is fun like that sometimes, isn't it? Like you do all this other stuff, but they know you as one thing.
I want to do, I want to jokingly put on the back of the business card, yes, you actually got to meet the Dave Schrader, and then autograph it. I know there's a few celebrities who have done that jokingly, so they've got it like, oh my God, I can't believe you met me, and then autographing it on the back. So maybe that's what I'll do for the next hump after 2021 when we're allowed to get back out and interact with people.
That's always the weird, that's conversation for another time. We're here to talk about the weird stuff. Well, you start talking about this stuff, and it's kind of like a rabbit hole, and you start going down it,
15 years, I know. I go down the rabbit hole once a week at least.
Dave, I had you on today. I wanted to get your take on this whole Monolith thing. Over in Utah, the first one showed up. Everyone was like, oh my God, the aliens are here. Something weird's going on.
Right.
It's probably not that. I saw you commented on it this weekend. There's been some artist groups taking credit for it. An article as early as today from the New York Post. What was your kind of first, when you first saw it, what did you think?
To be honest with you, when the story first broke, and we were covering it on our paranormal show last week, talking about the first one, and then you had one pop up in Romania, then one in California, and now there's one that showed up in London. My first thought was, oh, this is interesting. Where is this going to take us? Is this going to be a sequel we didn't know to 2001 and 2010, A Space Odyssey, or we're going to hit 2021 and catch us up, or what's going on? Because, in the 2001 Space Odyssey, it begins with that strange monolith in the middle of nowhere, the monkeys surrounding it. I wish I had an answer. Like I said in the article, I think, it's an interesting piece, obviously man-made because you can see screws put it together and all. Is it an art installation? Many think it might be by the late sculptor John McCracken. He had talked to his son as early as 2002 about it would be great to put up some of my sculptures in just remote places that people will find years after his death. And I think he's been gone now since 2011. So this isn't out of the wheelhouse of something he might have done. Logic is going to tell us this is probably going to be some kind of crazy movie deal, or it was a one-off art installation that many people are taking advantage of because it's creating fun. And that's the one thing I think we can all agree in 2020, we all need a little bit more fun, a little bit more awe and wonder and conversation about something that isn't pandemic or political.
It's so true. It really is. It's one of those things where it's like, you know what? Something weird like this in the middle of the desert, I will gladly take that over some of the things we've gotten this year. Dave Schrader joining me right now, host of the Holzer Files, also Darkness Radio. Dave, this is going to be kind of a goofy question, but you have the logical side of you when you see something like this. Was there a part of you that hoped it was something more like, you know what, maybe this is the, something?
Hey, I'm still there. Here's what's been going on that a lot of people in the world are not paying attention to or giving much credence to. But since 2017, there has been a soft disclosure coming out. The government releasing actual footage of unidentified flying objects, or now, UFOs is blasé. Now we call them UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. That's the official government tagline for them. And here in 2020, buried amidst stories of pandemics, race riots, and politics, the government admitted that footage is real, that there actually is, after years of denying any research or study, that those were all shut down years ago. They admit that there is an active program looking into unidentified aerial phenomena, UFOs. I'm starting to see, and again, you could start to see a conspiracy in anything. But when you start looking, and in 1 week's time, you have Miley Cyrus, you've got Khloe Kardashian, you've got, singers, what do they call them now? Influencers.
Yeah.
Talking about seeing their own UFOs and experiences. It almost feels like we're being readied for something. And having done Darkness Radio for 15 years, I get a lot of emails and a lot of cloak and daggery stuff, and some people I really like and really trust have been contacted by agencies that are admitting that there is a lot more going on than we know, and that we are very close to a global understanding. And I'm taking that, as always, with a kind of a grain of salt, but I also am starting to look at these facts as, maybe this is something. These little pods, these little monoliths, these tall silver, obelisks, if you will, that are appearing. Is it something to get our mind from one thing, get us elevated to a higher concept and something that's not so bleak and dark, and get us talking about possibilities again? I don't know. Your logical mind wants to take you to, it's a one-off artist and a bunch of goofballs with too much time on their hand putting up the rest of them. But again, if it ignites a conversation and it ignites an opportunity for people to come together like-mindedly and start to realize there's been a lot going on this year that we haven't paid attention to. And I encourage your listeners, go start looking at what's happened in 2020. First of all, there was probably one of the best pictures of Nessie photographed this year. The guy captured this amazing photograph that's a close-up photograph of something massive and anomalous.
Really?
Nobody's talking about it. Then all of this UFO disclosure really kind of coming out in big chunks in 2020. There's things that we're honing in on. There's things going on that make me believe that I think we're, although every generation says, right, the end is near, I think we're at that precipice where something major is about to happen. And if you're paying attention and you get your head out of your dark spot long enough to stop spewing hate and anger and rhetoric and just start being a part of the moment, you might start seeing a change and something really interesting happening that hopefully can take us out of this dark mindset that we've been in for the past year.
Dave Schrader joining me on the line started talking about the Monolith, but moved way on beyond that.
Well, no, I think this is still to do with the monoliths. There is the very real possibility that these are something meant to inspire conversation. And again, reactionary. They're watching. I believe the government is watching. How do we react to these things? How do we react to the implications that it may be alien in nature or something to do with contact? And maybe judging on the way we respond or don't respond is very telling to them, so that they know, they're not running in a panic. They're not charging into church, burning them down. Maybe we are getting to that point where they're adult enough to accept what we're about to share.
It's 2020. We've already done all that other stuff.
Right, exactly.
No, has the government ever done something like this before that you've heard of? Or maybe there is a real file of that out there of, hey, we put up quote-unquote monolith somewhere just to see what people would do. Have they ever done something like this?
Well, the government has agreed that they have studied us and done many strange tests on us. What was it, 7 years ago, when they agreed that they did a test with Facebook to identify how people react? And there was people were being filtered either bad news or good news to see how it impacted the rest of those individuals' days. I think that we're constantly just at a giant petri dish of experimentation to see how this goes. But for people that are still on the fence of, do aliens exist? If UFOs exist, why haven't they landed on the White House lawn? We've been there. As a matter of fact, I think it's a Life magazine. It's got from 1952. It's got Marilyn Monroe on the cover. But buried inside the magazine is an article and photographs. And you're, again, listeners, I encourage you, go read about this. This isn't one wackadoodle radio show host talking about this. This was big news. There were UFOs over the Capitol, over Washington, D.C., and photographed and witnessed by countless people. And they have made themselves known, and the government has been lax. And there's audio out there of, I believe it's Eisenhower, at the end of a press conference, somebody throws him the question, and he turns back and he goes, yes, about the flying saucers, yes, we're very aware, we know about them. And then he just walks off stage.
That's always the weird thing when you ask someone the really crazy question, and it's just another part of their day.
It doesn't take much to ignite ignorance.
No, especially
on our planet
social media.
And fear. Right. And if you spin it and it becomes something in fear, the government, in my belief for a long time, I think they painted themselves in a corner. You got to remember, the government, our own military, admitted a UFO disc crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. Then, within 24 hours, they pulled it back and said, oh, no, it was actually a downed balloon. And you could see the looks on Jesse Marcel's face and the other people there as he's holding up this junk debris. You have people that were experts in aircraft, and you mean to tell me they didn't know the difference between a down saucer and a balloon? They did post it, and they posted it with the approval of their commanding officer when that Roswell crash happened, and then pulled it back. I think once you painted yourself in the corner of deniability, it's hard. Where do we now admit? I think if there's an admission that's going to come, it's going to be, yes, we've made contact in the last 2 or 3 years. Because if we go back and admit UFOs all along, then that just sets a precedent of even more mistrust of our government, and nobody wants that. Even us, even the sheep, really don't want to mistrust our government any more than we do. At least that's my concept of it. And I'm fascinated to see where this goes, and with the people I've been speaking with that I trust, and have legitimate degrees in things that would make you think normally these are not people that would be into it. They're coming to me telling me, Dave, there is something big coming. Be prepared. I'm starting to take notice and stock of that.
Let me ask you this, and it kind of goes back to the government stuff. Why is our government so lock and key about this when there's other governments around the world that are like, yeah, hey, here's our library of weird UFO tapes? Why is the U.S. government so uptight about it?
Here's the thing that you do have to bear in mind. We're no better or worse than any other government. There's a lot of news out there about countries disclosing. France, Canada, places like that opened up. But when you read through the extensive files, which I have, very little of it is anything that they believe to be alien. A lot of them believe these craft to be American or Russian or China. So, that's what the real threat is. So their disclosure is really not disclosure of alien life. Their disclosure is of, hey, we don't know who the hell's making these things. But you've got enough, here's where it gets scary. The government sees the way we react. And I don't mean to be incendiary, but our country does not always react very well to weird news.
No, it really doesn't.
And for a long time, I couldn't wrap my head. I'm like, we're adults. And they're like, yeah, but you don't understand. We're adults that believe in God. And how does this reshape the thinking? But then you have to also look back that, hey, Pope Benedict came out and said, maybe it's not so bad to believe in planets and life on other planets, right?
Yeah.
He suddenly kicks open that door 10 years ago, saying it's okay to believe that God wouldn't stop on just one planet.
Yeah.
So when the pontiff at the Vatican admitting this, and the Vatican has their own observatory, you've got to start getting a little bit of insight that they've been slowly spoon-feeding us information. It's how we take it. But it's also scary because, in all honesty, the government is in an unenviable position. We want the truth. We demand the truth. And then when we get the truth, we act like children and we start fires and we start race wars and we start, all kinds of ridiculous things. And they see that and it frightens them because daddy and mommy can't take care of the kids.
Yeah.
And if we admit to you, all right, listen, aliens are coming here. They can fly over our nuclear installations and shut them off or turn them on at will. That makes the world a lot scarier. And how do you calm your people when you can't let them feel like you're protecting them? There's always that plausible deniability. I know there's UFOs. The government's hiding it from me. And then in the back of your head, you're like, oh, God, please don't let there be UFOs at the government's hiding. Right? So it's a really unenviable place. And I'm not protecting the government. They do a lot of stupid things. I think we've had the opportunity all along to be open about this, but it's taken them a while to get to that position. Now it'll just be interesting to see how this happens. But there is just too much and too many people that have seen this. When you have NASA astronauts that have been up there and saw things. You can't summarily dismiss them as having made a mistake. They're the best of the best.
Yeah.
We gave them this job to be in charge of this multi-billion or trillion-dollar piece of equipment because we can trust their acuity. And, go watch any of the movies about these astronauts and how special they really were, how they were able to get out of horrible jams. And then you really think at the outset, well, but we can't trust them if they think they saw a UFO.
You know what? You just made me think of something. That kind of makes me wonder if that's where like the conspiracy about how we never went to the moon came around, is to discredit it. It's not to, just discredit one thing, but it's also to discredit something else. When, a guy like, some of these different astronauts you bring up go into space, and it's like, oh, well, we can't trust them. They lied about going to the moon.
Right. Well, and I don't believe, here's the deal. China and Russia would love to rub our nose in our failures and misgivings, right?
Yeah.
And they can see the moon. They can see what's up there. And our garbage is all over the moon.
Yeah.
Right? Our rover, our flag, our trash, our McRib boxes and McDonald's cups are laying there. So if it didn't exist, Russia and China would have been going, your people, they lied to you, right? And that would have been outed, but they haven't. Which, when your enemies aren't willing to out you, I think there's something more going on. So I believe we were there. Do I believe that all of the footage and the photographs are legitimate? Maybe not. But, we also didn't know what it would be like to go to the moon and come back. And did the film survive? From my understanding, a lot of the film was destroyed or damaged in the way that it was, brought back through the radiation fields. And it was refilmed so that we had something to show to the people for the billions of dollars we were spending.
Wow, I've never heard that one. Really?
So,
really?
When Kubrick, talking of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick, before his death, made some really strangely veiled comments about having worked for the government to film some important things back in the 60s. And he's alluding to the fact that he filmed the space footage and the moonwalk. And there are aspects of the moonwalk that don't make sense. And there are some of the unedited versions of photographs that don't make sense. And then you see the new ones where and some are saying they had to change the images because, like in the face mask of a few of the astronauts, there appear to be a triangular craft reflected in their glass shield. And then they're not in the later pictures. So did we encounter something that we had to erase from that picture, or was that studio lights reflecting on the helmets and we had to erase that? It's hard to say exactly what took place, but I believe we've been to the moon. I believe we'll get back to the moon. And I know you've got deniers. We also have people that believe the planet is, our Earth is flat.
Dave, I'll tell you this, you want to ignite a war on Twitter sometime? Put up a poll. I've done this before. I put up a poll. What are you more likely to believe, flat Earth or hollow Earth? Oh, did I get some great responses.
Hey, we did a show, I think about 5 years ago, and I had the guy on twice because I was so fascinated. Obviously, it sounds so loony to say that we are a flat planet. But he brought up some stuff that was crazy, some different elements of the story I hadn't heard before.
Don't you hate that?
And I love it. And I'm one that instead of getting mad or outraged at how stupid this guy is, that's not my words, those are the words of the listeners. I am equally fascinated by why people believe things as I am to why they don't believe things. And it may be extremely real to this person. And that to me is fascinating. Why? What is your train of thought? And it pissed people off. Oh my God, you're an idiot. And then the other side, it didn't. We did a show, kind of taking you off topic. We did an interesting show. There's this woman named Pearl Jr. who has an entire website dedicated to how Michael Jackson faked his own death. And I was big into the rock and roll conspiracies. I loved the whole, Paul McCartney died in the 60s. Was replaced by a doppelganger, and there's been contemporary musicians and singers that have gone through the same thing, including Avril Lavigne.
Yeah,
right. So you look at some of these, you're like, that's crazy, but they're fun. And I talked to this woman, and she claims to be friends with Michael. And all of a sudden, I'm watching, and I see my producer lift up the phone. He gives this quizzical look, talks, and then hangs up. And then I get this text message from my guest. She goes, Michael just tried to call and they hung up on him. And I signaled my producer, put that call through. And for the next half an hour, watching social media blow up was exciting to me because people that started with, this is blasphemy, this is ridiculous, this is not Michael, you watch them slowly transform through this interview into, oh my God, I think you're talking to Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And then you had people that were like, this is, oh my God, he's got Michael. And you watch them slowly progress over to, this can't be Michael Jackson. And I never believed for a moment I was talking to Michael Jackson, but it was fun. And I told people, listen, what if? That's what the show is predicated on. What if? We're always examining ghosts and fairies and UFOs and demons and monsters. What if one time in 2009, somebody on a little radio station in Minnesota took that call and it really was Michael? And what if in 2025 he comes out of the woodwork? Wow, we had that moment with him. So I took the call. We had fun with it because that's, again, I love to engage people's logical brains and their creative brains to allow them to think beyond the normal. And that, that's, again, going back to the Monolith. That's what's exciting about this to me, is watching how it's bringing people together in a different way to discuss, whether it's with excitement, rage, awe, or wonder, what is going on with these monoliths and why are they there? Everybody loves a good mystery.
Dave Schrader from Darkness Radio joining me to talk about the Monolith. As we wrap up today, that's all great stuff. The Michael Jackson thing is crazy. And you actually reminded me of, like, I'll watch a lot of stuff on YouTube, and it's not because I believe it, it's because it's interesting.
Right.
It's not that I think, such and such, actually happened, but the story behind it, kind of fun to listen to. So
you're right. And one thing that we learned, I get a lot of listeners are like, how do you keep your cool when talking to guests that are nuts? I said, I stopped judging in year one of doing the show, now 15 years in, because I realized that what's real to me and not real to me is something different than everybody else. And I've had people come on and they'll tell me, Dave, I have this experience. When I was a kid, there was this large frog-like creature that would sit in the hallway between my room and my parents' room. And when they would be having a huge fight, I would see this creature. And if I'd get out of bed, it would literally croak at me to get back in bed and bark at me. And I hear these stories and I'm like, God, you're nuts. And then all of a sudden I start getting emails from around the world going, Dave, I've been suicidal. I thought I was insane. I've seen that. I know what they're talking about. Thank you for having that person on and letting them share their story. And then not one email, like hundreds of emails come in. So you just have to realize that just because it isn't your understanding of reality doesn't mean it isn't and doesn't resonate with someone else.
There you go. Dave Schrader, thank you so much. What do you guys, other than the 50th anniversary coming up, what else you got cooking?
Well, we're on our mid-season break here for the Holzer Files. We'll be returning to the Travel Channel on January 7th with the final 7 episodes of Season 2. So on the 7th, 7 new episodes begin airing. I've got, Darkness Radio every week, and it's on all the podcast platforms. If you just look it up or ask your smart device to play the newest edition of Darkness Radio, it should fire up for you. And, I'm working on a book right now that I'm hoping to have done by the end of the year, talking about my life and experiences with the supernatural, and just hoping to get through like everybody else. And I hope everybody that tunes into your show and hears talks like this can take a little time out of the stress in their lives to just enjoy thinking outside the box for a little bit. Thanks for giving me the platform and forum to come out and talk about all this.
No problem, Dave. You have a happy holiday, all right, man?